The Indy steering wheel isn't just for steering. It's the control center for the race car, replacing the dashboard. This incredible steering wheel is also detachable to allow the driver to enter and exit the cockpit quickly and easily. It's quite simply designed for speed. The Indy steering wheel is a complex piece of equipment that puts everything at the driver's fingertips. It starts with a full-scale design, customized to the driver's racing style and preferences. The technician aligns a traditional racing steering wheel with the drawing and marks it for a complete remodel. He cuts out the leather and foam wrap within the marked lines and saws off a chunk of the aluminum frame. He then activates a computerized cutter that carves away a big section of the steering wheel hub. It also cuts holes for switches. With these changes, the steering wheel is ready to accommodate a panel with over 24 controls and gauges. Next, more computerized tooling transforms a sheet of carbon fiber into the steering wheel switch plate. It cuts out holes for screws and switches, and it creates slots for the shift and clutch paddles. The tool then zigzags around the perimeter to trim the switch plate to fit the modified steering wheel. With the trimmings removed, the switch plate is ready for the working parts. The next technician plugs the color-coded switches into the holes and locks them in place with nuts and anti-vibration washers. The yellow one is a pit lane speed limiter. As the name suggests, it will limit the car's speed in the pit lane. Once all the switches have been installed, he runs wires to them and solders the connections. This completes the circuitry. He coats each connection with silicone sealant. This weatherproofs them and further dampens vibrations. And for additional protection, he applies glue to the plastic sheathing around the wires. He adds a rubber boot to each connection. The boot fits loosely around it at first, but using a heat gun, he shrinks the specially formulated rubber to the connection. This makes the boot fit like it was made for it. The Indy steering wheel switch plate is now ready for the shift paddles. So next, the technician screws a spacer plate into the slot. This metal spacer slightly elevates the paddle mechanism to give it the right amount of clearance. He screws the paddle assembly to the spacer. He installs a second shift paddle and 2 clutch paddles. Then he inserts the rotary switch for fuel mapping and secures it with a washer and nut. This fuel mapping system will adjust the fuel-air mix to boost or decrease power output. He adds little decals with icons to the color-coded switches. A radio transmission icon marks the communication switch. He returns to the steering wheel now. He attaches a unit that displays RPM and other information that a normal dash would have. He screws it to the exposed aluminum frame. He's now ready to mount the completed switch plate to the steering wheel. 3 bolts to the hub secure the assembly. He installs a spring-loaded mechanism at the back of the steering wheel that will allow the steering wheel to be installed or removed in half a second. He tests the 2 shift paddles and the 2 clutch paddles and confirms they operate smoothly. Finally, he attaches dense padding to the steering wheel hub for a soft landing for the driver's head in the event of a crash. This Indy steering wheel costs as much as a small compact car. But for the driver and crew, it's worth the investment if it helps win the prize.